Yo guys, Ponchi here, and today we're gonna learn how to loop some guitar on your Octatrack Mark II. Let's go! Alright, so as some of you may know, I do have a video already on looping guitar on the Octatrack, but today I wanted to do something a little different. I've got my Ariel ready to go, tuned up, and I kind of want to show you how to do it from scratch. I've had a couple requests on how to do this looping thing from scratch on the Octatrack, so I want to show that to you guys. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to start off by making a new project. So go to project, hit change, create empty project, boom. Okay, we're going to name this guitar looping project. Ha! Just kidding, that's way too long. Let's just name it Git. Whoops. Git with two T's. Okay, bam, here we go. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to be able to hear my guitar. So let's go ahead and set up a through track for that. So I'm just going to double tap on source here on track 1, set it as a through machine. So if you're not familiar, a through machine is used to pass audio through the Octatrack. So that's why it's called a through machine. But so in order to get this going, I have my guitar going in input D. So you want to use this encoder. You want to set your volume all the way up. And then you want your level to be all the way up as well. So that'll ensure that you have the best signal you possibly can coming through the Octatrack. Now keep in mind, I am using my guitar through an amp. I have a little Vox Super Beetle that has a line out on the back. And so I'm basically using that not only for a little bit of color, but also for boosting the signal. Now you can do this with your guitar plugged directly in, though you might find that some of your loops and recordings and stuff might be a little too quiet. So, you know, there's ways on the Octatrack to increase the gain, but you know, I prefer to do it through an amp. That way I have a little bit more control. So, and that way the signal, I have more than enough signal coming through the amp. So, okay, so now, if you're not familiar with a through machine, you need to lay a trig in order for it to pass the audio through. So we're going to go ahead and lay that trig on step 1. And now I want to press play. Now the sequencer will start going. You can see that track 1 is indeed playing. So let's try the guitar. Okay. All right, so we do have signal. You'll notice if you press stop once, the through track will still be playing, even though the sequencer is not actually running. That's really handy if you're trying to just, you know, play some guitar and be able to hear it without having the sequencer actually running. So basically, if you're like getting ready to do your loop, and you're just like working something out on the guitar, that's a really handy trick that I like to use. If you press stop twice quickly, you'll notice that the through track is not playing anymore. So to start it over, you'll have to press play and then stop. So, okay. So secondly, I wanna have a beat to play along to rather than just play along to the metronome. So I'm gonna go ahead and use track 2 for that. So double tap on source and let's use a flex track. And I want to, you can either double tap on track 2 or on source to get to this menu. But I want to, let's just use a drum loop rather than create our own beat right now. Let's see, I have some drum loops here. The Loop Masters stuff that comes with your Octatrack is really good, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. So let's see here. I like the first one. Let's just use that. So, okay, and then you want to hit yes to select, make sure that that one is indeed selected. And then, of course, to get the loop to play, you want to lay your trig. So, okay, let's try it out. Okay. It's a little fast. Let's go down a little more chill tempo, you know? Perfect. Oh yeah, okay, I'm feeling that. Okay, so next we want to set up, essentially we want to set up track 1 to be able to capture the audio. Now this is something I didn't go over in my last video. I used a pickup machine to loop the audio, which, you know, there's a whole slew of advantages to a pickup machine. Most notably overdubbing. So, you know, these are two different ways, and I will also be making another video to kind of go over pickup machines again and clarify them, because I know that for a lot of people, pickup machines are probably one of the hardest aspects of the Octatrack. So, okay, so you know, I would say that this method it's a little easier to get going. There's not as much setup for looping here. So let's go ahead and select track 1. Now you want to press function and record 1 to go to the recording setup menu. Now, essentially what we're going to utilize here are called one-shot trigs. So when you're in the recording menu and you press record, you have access to the recording trigs, and you can now lay recording trigs on your timeline, on your sequence here, your pattern. So if we just press these, if we just lay some trigs here, it'll record every time these trigs are passed over. So that's not exactly something we want, because then our loop will be constantly getting overwritten. Maybe that's something you want. You know, that, you know, if you were going to do that, you wouldn't want to lay 3 trigs. You just want to maybe lay 1 trig and then have it be a 4-page or 4-bar pattern. You know, that's something you could definitely do. And then every 4 bars, it would record over. So, but, you know, again, that's not what we're going to try and do here. So take that trig off, and actually what you're going to do is hold function and press 1. So you get this yellow trig, and that's what's known as a one-shot trig. So one shot, pretty self-explanatory. It's going to trig once, and then that's it. So this is handy because once our loop is recorded, it's not going to get overwritten. So we want to set where the audio is going to come from. So if you hold this one-shot trig, you'll notice that all of these turn red up top here. So that means that this track, this recording buffer for track 1 is going to record from all of these sources. So we don't necessarily want that. So let's go ahead and hit record 1. They correspond to these 3 buttons. So if you hit record 1, it takes off A and B, inputs A and B, and it also shows on the screen there. And then let's hit record 3, and that takes off internal recording, internal sampling. And all that's left is inputs C and D for recording. So, okay, so the recording length, this is something that you do need to set, but I'm going to keep things simple and just record. Let's do 32 for good measure. Okay, so the recording length is going to be 32. So that's all set. You can press no to get out of there. So track 1 is now set up to capture our loop, capture our guitar, but what we need now is a way to play the loop, essentially. So you want to go ahead, we're going to set track 3 to be the track that plays the loop back. So let's tap on track 3 here, hit left, and we want this to be a flex machine. And the source that we want the flex machine to be is R1. So if you scroll up, you have your list of samples here, but if you scroll up, you have all these recording buffers. And each recording buffer corresponds to each track. So technically, you can record, if you set up tracks 1 through 8 or 1 through 7, if you're using the master track, if you set all of those up to record like we just did with track 1, then you can indeed store 7 or 8 different loops all at the same time. And then, you know, if you're playing live, to me that speaks volumes about playing live. You could definitely use that for playing live, and then you'd have all these different loops ready to go. And then, you know, if you wanted to do some live laying live trigs and stuff like that, you could easily swap out, you know, the loops in real time. So that's how that works. So track 3, we're going to set it to recording buffer 1. So don't let it confuse you. Even though we're on track 3, we have track 1 set up to record. So we want to record or we want to play recording buffer 1, essentially. So go ahead and tap yes. In order for it to play, we're going to want to lay a trig. And this is also where you got to keep in mind how long your recording length is, because we have our recording length set to 32, but on track 3 is only set to 16 steps, or just 1 page or 1 bar, however you want to look at it. So if you want it to play the whole loop, you're going to want to set the pattern length accordingly. So let's go ahead and increase the scale to 32. I'm not going to mess with scale per pattern right now, so we'll just leave the master pattern as 32. So now we have, and that another thing you want to keep in mind here, when you increase the pattern length, it copies the trigs over. So you're going to want to make sure you go over to page 2 and remove that trig. So that way, the only trig we have is on step number 1, rather than step 1 and step 16. So being as our loop is 32 steps, now that we have our trig set at the beginning here, it'll just play all the way through, and then of course by the time it trigs again, it'll play the loop over again. So hope that wasn't too confusing, but so okay. So now this is where things get interesting. This is where I'm not a fan of having to use a pedal with the Octatrack, because, I mean, let's face it, the Octatrack is already cost a pretty penny. I don't believe that people should have to use a pedal to achieve the things they want to achieve on the Octatrack, because it's certainly set up in a way that you don't need a pedal to record. Sure, it's handy, and it's something that all of us guitarists are used to because we're used to having loop pedals on the floor, but it's not something that's necessary on the Octatrack, which is really nice. So those one-shot trigs, they will stay there. The one that we have on track 1 here, that one-shot trig is gonna stay there forever. Once it triggers, it's not like it's not gonna disappear. But what they've set up is an arming system, much like on a DAW. So if we want it to record, let's back out of here, hit no, take the, get out of record mode. So if you press yes, you will arm all the tracks to record. They're not all going to record because you don't have recorder trigs on them though. So you don't have to worry about the arming all and the disarming all. It's just easier that way. So I would press yes. Well, let's press no. Let's keep it disarmed for now. By default, the way you had it set up here, the way we had it set up, it's gonna be disarmed by default. So let's go ahead and play the beat. Okay, so our beat is playing. Now it's not recording because the trig is disarmed. Also, when the one-shot trig is armed, you'll see a plus sign to indicate that it's recording. So let's just try that without playing any guitar for right now. What happens when the loop is playing and we hit yes? Okay, it says arm all. As you can see, there's a plus sign on track 1. And then it stopped after 2 bars. So technically now we have a recording in there, but of course I didn't play anything. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that again, except I'm going to play something this time. So, okay. And so the reason I bring up the arming is because you don't want it. The arming gives you time to press the buttons and then come over to your guitar so you're ready to play. Whereas if you armed it right away and then hit play, it would start recording immediately. And you know, that's why we use pedals, right? That's why we use loop pedals, because it's super hard to press to start looping and then, you know, all of a sudden come over to your guitar and be ready to play. So what you want to do essentially is start the beat first and then arm it, so that way you have more than enough time to hit yes and then come over to your guitar to play. So, and then also keep in mind our trig is gonna trig at the beginning of every bar. So you want to just try and hit it in this area. Very similar to the video I made last time about pickup machines. You want to essentially hit it before it's ready, so that way you have time to start playing, of course. So, okay, so let's start the beat. Oh, I forgot, it's armed already. So let's go ahead, I disarmed it by pressing no, so let's play again. Okay, so I'm getting ready, you know, I've got my, you know, if you're familiar with looping, you know, I've got my chords ready to go, so all I need to do is hit yes and then start strumming, so. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna hit yes. Okay, as you can hear, it's not the greatest loop ever, but it is indeed playing through track 3. Okay, so now if we go over to track 3, this is a way for me to check if something was recorded properly. Obviously, hearing it is a way to check, but I like to use the audio editor. Let's go ahead and hit audio editor, AED. And let's zoom in a little bit so we can see. And you can see that there is indeed a loop there. A perfectly recorded loop of 32 steps, or 2 bars, however you want to look at it, or 2 pages. And that just goes to show there that it's a pretty good level. You know, it's not clipping. Of course, I guess ultimately I should have mentioned, you want to check your clipping. You want to check your signal with the the input lights here to make sure that it's not red or even yellow. You know, you want it to be in the green. So now we have this loop. Let's listen to it again. One thing we can do here, of course, the level by default is set to 108. So let's go ahead and turn that up to maximum. So now this is an interesting tidbit. If you are recording direct and your guitar is a little low, you can use this as a place to, this is one of the ways that you can turn it up. You can go to the amp section and you can turn up the actual volume. You know, that's one way to look at it. Let's try it out. Okay, now it's getting too loud for me because I'm already boosted with my amp. You know, there's nothing special on my amp right now. I just have the level and the gain set to where, you know, it's audible. So yeah, there you have it. Now there's you know, there's things you can do once you have the loop recorded. You can take things a step further, and you can go to the slice grid, or you can create a slice grid and slice this baby up. So you go over to slice, create slice grid. Now the loop itself is 32 steps, so you could potentially do 32 slices. That would mean that each slice would only be as big as one step, which to me, that's not the most desirable thing, because if you play any given slice, it'll just be like a, you know, like that kind of stuff. Like, it won't be very long. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do 16 slices. You could also do 8, but so now we have these slices. So let's go ahead and we can step through them here. Now this is the reason that I set track 3 as a flex machine, because I wanted to be able to slice, and you know, of course there's tons of things you can do from this point now. I'll show you one more trick. Let's take the slicing a step further, and I'm going to introduce you guys to parts a little bit, to a way that I use parts. So if we go to part 2, hit part, hit right to go to part 2, yes, boom, okay, we're in part 2. Now this completely changes all your machines. So we no longer have a through track. So you can't hear, you can hear the guitar from my mic, but you can't hear the guitar coming through the Octatrack. But what we can do now is you don't need to set a through track on here. All you need to do is set up one of your tracks to play from the recording buffer. So let's go to track 1, double tap, hit left, flex, and we want our flex track to play recording buffer 1. You guessed it, you are correct. So now if we hit play, of course we'll want to set up our beat as well, but what we can do here is let's slice recording buffer 1 up again. It's still sliced from what we just did. Okay, so now what you can do here is you can lay a bunch of trigs. So let's try that. Okay, sounds kind of weird, right? Because every time it hits a trig, it's restarting from the beginning. But what we can do is double tap on source here, and you want this to be in slice mode. And then set the length to be just each slice. So now what we can do is go back to the audio editor, go to slice, hit yes, and then you can do create random locks. Alter trigs, sure, yes. So now what we've done is all these trigs that we laid, you can see they're all flashing now because they're parameter locked. Every single trig is now set to a different slice. Now, and for good measure, let's get our beat back in here. Let's see, flex track. Our beat sample is still here, so we can go ahead and do that. And we just want, okay, trigs are already laid. So here we go, let's press play. And what we're gonna get is the guitar loop that I played, but it's gonna be in like a different order. The loop that I made is not necessarily the best for this kind of thing. Not too shabby, right? In reality, what I should have done, I'm not going to do it now for time's sake in order to keep this video a little shorter, but what I should have done was recorded a loop that has like some different chords, some different notes, because then when you slice it up, you know, different slices will correspond to different chords or different notes. So when you do the random lock thing that we just did, random slice thing, you essentially end up with a pattern that takes the loop that you made and puts it in a different order. So I find that's really nice for, you know, if you're stuck in a creative rut or something. I mean, just what I did there, to me, you know, it sounds like the beginning of something really cool, you know. Even though I just played the same chord for the whole loop. But the fact that we sliced it up and created random locks out of that, it gave it kind of a new flavor. It's essentially this is essentially remixing. So you bet you guys didn't know that you were going to learn how to remix your loops today. But that's one of my favorite things about the Octatrack for sure, that none of the other Elektron machines can do. You know, people always ask the question like, oh, you know, should I get the Octatrack? I already have a Digitakt. You know, I can sample on there, like it's great. But this is one of those selling points, you know, and keep in mind, I'm not sponsored by Elektron. I'm just a huge Elektron fanboy. I don't care who knows it. I'm a fanboy. So that's one of the coolest things about the Octatrack, is the fact that you can slice things up, lay some random trigs, and then create random locks from that. So, you know, there's another setting in there, create linear locks. You know, that's another way to change things up. So, you know, you guys should experiment now that you know how to loop your guitar. So, and then also keep in mind, let's go back to part one. I'll show you, I'll end on this. Oh yeah, and if you hold part one, or if you hold part and then press the arrow, it'll automatically go to that, so you don't have to press yes. But so let's play this. Keep in mind we're back to part one, so this is just, what you're hearing is just the loop that I recorded. But what we can do is switch to part two while it's playing. And then we can switch back to part one. You'll notice if you switch between parts at a weird time, it makes the loop sound weird. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. But again, this is how powerful the Octatrack is, because utilizing parts, you can essentially remix your loops live on the spot. So hopefully that helps you guys, and hopefully that's something you start incorporating into your live sets and whatnot. I learned this from the the master himself, Mr. Dataline. Shout out to Dataline, thank you so much. But yeah, like the stuff I've seen him do, you know, remixing live is just amazing. So I wanted to incorporate that into my guitar looping on the Octatrack. So, but yeah, hope that helps you guys, and thanks for sticking with me here for a longer one. You know, the guitar looping, it's not too bad, but you know, there is a little bit of a learning curve, and once you have it set up, you know, it's easy. And now, you know, we have all these different possibilities now with just one loop, one chord, you know. So thank you guys. Subscribe if you haven't already, please. Ring the bell for alerts. I release videos at least once a week, if not more. I'm starting to do more shorts now as well. But, you know, if there's something you guys want to see, definitely leave a comment and let me know below, and I will make that video for you. Eventually, I'm going to plant this seed now. I will be releasing a course eventually, utilizing the Octatrack and other Elektron machines, just kind of showing you guys my setup and, you know, how I do things. So, but stay tuned for that course. It's a little bit of a ways out, but I wanted to, again, plant the seed now so you guys know and are aware. But yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you guys in a few days. Have a good one.